gave their regrets that they couldn't join today. But I wanted to first start with an announcement that we have submitted for certification, for bronze certification. That was this week, and we submitted with 147 points out of the threshold for bronze is 120. We may not receive all of those points, but we felt good about the submission there. And 9 out of 12 pledge elements were actions within 9 of the 12 pledge elements, and we completed 26 out of the 115 total actions that we can complete in the program. So hopefully we'll hear back. I'm not sure what the timing is exactly, but hopefully we'll hear back soon with good news. So good job, everyone. The other thing I just wanted to mention before we get into the agenda that I sent out is we have an addition to the agenda, which is kind of late breaking news. We've been offered an opportunity. I just emailed out this morning some information. Offered an opportunity by the Capital District Regional Planning Commission to participate in a climate resilience planning process, which we'll get into. And Tara Donadio will be talking to us about that opportunity. It seems like a really good opportunity for us as a county, and they're coming to the table offering to basically provide the resources that we need to do that. So it looks like a good opportunity for us to consider, and there is some urgency given the planning, the funding cycle, to make a decision on that today and recommend whether we want to have the Board of Supervisors approve moving forward on that. So we'll get back to that in a moment, but just to go through specific business beforehand and then open it up to see if there's any other additional matters. Updates on the Climate Carnival. We're excited. It's a week and a half away, July 16th. The group that's been working on it, led by Jolene and Tistria, with several other people from our task force and some external people, have done a really great job. We've managed to raise about $5,000 or $6,000. We didn't put a lot of effort into raising that money, but opportunities arose, so we were able to offset certain costs and print signs and do some social media advertising, and offer to pay our many volunteers, provide them lunch, for example, on Friday when they're setting up. So it really it has been a group effort, and Supervisor Adams, do we still need volunteers? I will let Tistria is going to be late. She'll be joining us at 10:30. So let's circle back to that. I don't believe we may need more for the free store setup, but I think everything else is pretty much taken care of. Bruce, do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't know. I mean, we'll know better on the day. I mean, we could always use people, but I think we have it under control. But if someone really wants to volunteer, we'll find something for them to do.
We do need, I believe we still need a person to person the table for this task force. So we'll have a table there. It will basically be just an information table. You know, here's a map of all the vendors, and this is what's happening, and options. And then, of course, to talk about the work we're doing and why it's relevant. So talk about our task force and the Climate Smart program in general, nothing too detailed. We have 2 volunteers, Matthew and Bill, thank you, have both volunteered to take the first 2 slots from 10 to noon and noon to 2. We still need someone from 2 to 4 to be at the table, just to kind of answer questions and be hospitable. It doesn't take more than that. So if anyone knows, anyone is interested, all right. Thank you, Brenda. So that is great. And we'll let everyone know if there's a need for more volunteers specifically, but I think Bruce is right. If anyone wants to volunteer, we'll find a role, because there's always a need for help. and then we'll ask Tistria when she joins us in a few minutes. We have something like 45 vendors, 2 food trucks, bands, in putting out these signs and promoting it. We've gotten some articles, some free media, and we hope that the word is getting out there, but please continue to really push it out to everyone you know, your networks, your social networks, and your towns, and make sure that this last week is a big push to really let people know it's happening. I'm cautiously optimistic well, I know we'll have a great time, but I'm cautiously optimistic it'll be a robust kind of outing. So that's all I have on the Climate Carnival. I don't know if anyone has any questions or additional points or comments on that. The community solar update, there's not much to say other than it just keeps chugging along. We're well over, I think, 130 signups with Neighborhood Sun. And I don't know if Kara's on. She can give us a more detailed update. And the big current news is that Nexamp will be sending out a letter in the next week or so to every Columbia County resident. And they'll be having an information session on July 27th, which is highlighted in the letter, and they'll be promoting their campaign, I think, more robustly moving forward. There is an opportunity. We haven't done anything yet. I wanted to open up any suggestions people had to how we are targeting lower and moderate income communities for this project. And we had talked about doing some outreach in Hudson in particular. And I really would like to see us do that over the course of the next several months. The solar companies will provide a lot of help in terms of materials, maybe personnel. What we can do is identify opportunities in our community. And then, of course, volunteer to be there. But if folks are aware, I don't know if Michael O'Hara's on the call, but if folks are aware of any particular events, public events that are coming up that we could attach ourselves to, we could table at, particularly in Hudson over the course of the summer into the fall, that would be great, and we could potentially organize something around that. But if people have other ideas, I just wanted to open that up to continue that conversation so we don't lose the initiative there to really fulfill the campaign in that regard. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Matt. So, I mean, I'm fully on board with tabling at the farmers market. I know we had discussed that before.
Yeah.
So, if folks want to, and I know people at the farmers market. I think I know the person who organizes it. So, I'd be willing to get in touch with them and see how much room they have for us or where we would be. So, so starting in September, I'd be willing to, do a weekend or two if folks are into that. I don't know if it would be all day or what, but I'd be willing to help out with that.
That's great. I think that's a great example. And it may or may not give us, as much access as we want to those targeted communities, but certainly signing up people and being at those, I think that's great. If you could report back to us when you learn more about what the opportunity is, then we can figure out how we can help support it with materials and other people to volunteer.
Right. I'll write an email today or something.
Thank you, Matthew.
Dave, I'm sorry, I can't see if someone else is about to speak, but this is Matt Stinchcoming. I'd be happy to reach out to Emily at the Hudson Area Library. We have the Library of Local project running there. There could be some upcoming events that could be good, or we could think about, doing something at the library. I could ask her if she has some ideas.
Great. So let's do that. And and I'll follow up with Michael. I don't know if he's on because he usually knows what's going on in Hudson and probably will have some ideas. So let's do that. Reach out to me if you have other ideas and we'll report back in the next few weeks, we'll figure out what the opportunities are, and we can tee those up for our next meeting so people can volunteer and we can organize those efforts. Supervisor Adams.
You're muted. No.
We might also reach out to Bob Gibson at DSS. They put people in touch with heat funds, and this might be an equivalent program for, and that's certainly their target customer is lower income, and also Columbia Opportunities. They serve people in terms of their going out to help people with weatherization and that sort of thing. It's the same client. So if you'd like, I'd be happy to reach out to Columbia Opportunities and Bob Gibson.
That would be great. That's perfect.
And do we have a brochure that we can hand out? Is there?
Well,
would we be handing out the letter that we sent out? Would we be handing out 2 letters? What would we be handing out?
that's a good question. We have a website which has the information, of course, but if we're there, we want to be able to point people, give people something. I know Neighborhood Sun and Nexamp individually have literature that we could use, so that's a start. Whether we need to create another document that is kind of from the county, kind of like the purpose of our website, I don't know if that's really necessary. I don't know how folks feel about that. I mean, we could probably just take the information. Okay, thank you, Maureen. We could take the information that we have and just be out there talking about it.
Okay. So if someone could send me copies of those 2 letters, then I can put together a little packet as a tool for the conversation.
Yeah, I will follow up with Nexamp and Neighborhood Sun and get whatever literature is relevant, and then I'll send it to Matthew, Matt, and Brenda, and anyone else. I'll just send it out to everyone, and then if anyone else wants to take the initiative to do some research into other opportunities, that'd be great. I think we can do one big push over the course of the fall, the end of the summer and fall in these various areas, and that'll be the end of the campaign. And hopefully with Nexamp's letter going out, we'll get over 200 people or more, and hopefully we'll have some really good success in these particular communities.
But if we do it in the summer, we're more likely to get them on board for winter heating. So that would be great to think about that timing.
I think it's a great point, and I don't mean to kick the can down the road. We should go as quickly as possible. Great. Well, that's good. So that we have some follow-up.
Are there any other?
Sorry, Matt, we're losing you. Can you try one more time?
I'm for the state programs that could offer other incentives for low-income families, whether it's switching to heat pump or doing any of these things, and we could bundle some of that outreach and promotion and maybe offer more incentives than what exists just with this program.
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't know if anyone knows of currently available resources. Tara probably would, for individuals to access some of those programs. I do know that we could choose to run a dedicated community campaign on heat pumps, which I think is a great idea if we can organize the providers, if we know that there are providers that can serve people in the county. And I know they're out there. I don't know how available they are and how willing. So that's one option. We could actually launch another campaign after this one focused on heat pumps as part of the Clean Energy and Climate Smart program. There you go. There's a good resource, Matthew.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're doing that here in Germantown. I was going to mention it later, but you brought it up. Yeah, we're going to piggyback on this program, and they've already vetted some providers. And obviously, I think we've talked about this before. The providers are not in Columbia County directly, but they're in the Capital District, and they're willing to travel. Yeah, so folks can take a look at that website. It's full of great information. They talk about air source heat pumps, hot water heat pumps, and geothermal. So
And it's, I see the link is, I haven't clicked on it, but financial help. So there are resources, financial resources available for
Yep.
individuals.
and there are tax breaks, there are incentives that are, I think, only go into next year. So there's lots there to talk about. And certainly you can talk about energy audits. There's all manner of things that are
Right.
bundled in this website. So, and this program. So it's something that Germantown's going to jump on as part of our, we're going to do cool heating and demos here in town. And yeah, it's a heavy lift. I mean, and there's plenty of grants left for various sites. I think there's 25 left for small communities and probably 45 for larger communities. So
For a community campaign for heat.
community campaigns, I don't know county level. I don't know what there is, but I know. So it's something individual towns can do as well as us. The larger task force. So.
Yeah, I mean, if we choose to do it, we could do it along the same lines as the community solar, where we have the county and then we have the towns participating as they want to. I don't think many towns, unlike community solar, many towns have done a campaign yet on this. So, so that's a decision we have to make. Do we want to pursue that as a task force and go down that path? I think it makes sense to pursue it, whether we do it sooner or later. But beyond that, there's this information that's already out there, and there are financial programs. Mark also forwarded the NYSERDA Solar for All link, and it sounds like within those two, the Heat Smart Capital Region and the NYSERDA program, there's probably currently available opportunities for people. And I want to give Tara an opportunity to chime in here too. I know she'll have something smart to add. So it sounds like there's a bunch of information that we could gather right now to use in this outreach around the community solar that we're talking about, to also put that information out there if we're reaching out through these networks to LMI communities in particular. It doesn't, it's not hard to add on a little bit additional information in the short term. Tara, did you have anything to add on this?
Not a lot. Actually really covered the biggest pieces of what it would do, what we would do to start a heat pump campaign. The Heat Smart Capital Region also has resources for energy efficiency work, which also counts towards your threshold. So for example, small communities need 5 installs. 3 of those can be energy efficiency upgrades, which have to be done by a contractor. So it can't be like a DIY spray foam situation. But for residents that meet certain income levels, those can be free. So Empower, which is a NYSERDA program, provides up to $8,000 for low-income folks. So those that qualify for like heat programs to do energy efficiency upgrades to their houses. And then there's like a median income, not sure the numbers necessarily, but it's like a step up and they get 50% of energy efficiency upgrades. So there's some really great programs out there to connect with that the state offers. Heat pumps don't have as great of a incentive. It comes through the utilities, but there's still some good incentives out there to for residents that are thinking about switching over. So.
There are also some local heating companies. I know when I got the letter reminding me I needed to have my furnace service for the year, they sent me a letter saying that if I wanted to do an upgrade to a heat pump, these were the list of incentives that they would provide in terms. So there are local businesses that are jumping on this opportunity as well.
Do you, can you, what company is that, or can you send
Nolan Propane. And they've moved into Columbia County. They've bought a couple of local heating and cooling companies. So they're servicing the northern part of the county.
Nolan?
Nolan.
Great.
I may even still have the flyer at home. I'll scan it and send it to you.
Well, I mean, we have at the end of our agenda look at the work plan for the next 12 months, and I think we'll probably come back to this point as one of the key areas of focus. But let's, for now, I think we're going to revisit it shortly, but let's move forward to get through the other parts of the agenda, and then we can come up with more of a forward-looking plan on these tighter plan on what we want to do next on these issues. That is great, and keep the suggestions coming in the chat in the meantime. If you have any other information, we'll get that included. So a quick update on benchmarking. This is from Wendy. The information has been gathered and updated. It's being reviewed right now by the Commissioner of Public Works. And once that gets reviewed, then it can be posted and put online. And I believe that will complete our requirement for benchmarking. I don't know, Wendy's not on, so I have to check with her whether we've completed the EPA, what is it called, Bill? Energy Manager input. That's part of the project, part of what we need to do, right?
Portfolio manager, the EPA portfolio manager. Yeah, you have to input your data there, and that's how you can generate reports for what's needed for benchmarking.
Right. So I think I don't know if you've been working with her on that. I know that you have in the past.
In the past I helped set it up for her, and then she's kind of taken it from there because there was a lot of information I've offered, but she said she needed to go through a couple of different agencies to get information and got too involved with that. So
good. Well, we'll get an update. I believe it's moving forward well, and hopefully we can get that information up and finalize that this report for this year, and next year will be a lot easier. And don't forget that that's kind of one of the key components of the government operations greenhouse gas inventory, which is something that we're kind of looking forward to getting into down the line as well.
Just a note on that too, David. Once that's completed, that actually, once you upload that to NYSERDA as well and tell them you've completed that, you'll be, the county will be officially designated as a clean energy community through NYSERDA. So you'll get $5,000 in grant money to use towards the project.
Welcome. Great. Fantastic. So we've got a few other items, and then we also have, which is on the agenda, task force membership, which I want to just talk about briefly, committees, and then the work plan. But before we get into that, I think we should take a sidestep to this opportunity that's been presented to us from Tara and her organization to support Columbia County in a climate resilience, adaptation and resilience plan and planning process. And Tara can tell us more about what it is, and we can talk about why that's important for our county and what role we can play. We had a conversation yesterday about it, and it sounds like a really great opportunity. And could be very valuable for us, now and in the future. But Tara, do you want to just take it away? And
Sure, absolutely. So as David mentioned, we literally just spoke about this yesterday. We've been putting all of the pieces in place for this new support services that we're providing to municipalities through the DEC's Climate Smart Communities program. My support has traditionally, or for the last 5 years, been through the NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities program, but the DEC has decided, our role as on the ground coordinators was important. So we're providing more services now, which means we've got more that we can kind of add for free service support to municipalities and counties. So one piece of this, in addition to enhanced support for climate smart certification and climate greenhouse gas inventories and climate action plans, which they go hand in hand, is what we're partnering with Cornell Cooperative Extension on, which is climate resiliency planning, or also known as climate adaptation plans. We have a set amount of funding that we have to provide these plans, so we can't do them for the whole state. We actually don't cover the whole state. We just cover kind of the capital region, and then the Eastern Territory as a larger piece of kind of what we're responsible for. But we've been talking internally as we've been working through this, and this is obviously the very first year of this program. Most of the time, a community that wanted to do a climate adaptation plan would have to hire a consultant and go through their own RFP process and potentially apply for some grants from the state. But again, this is all free. And we recognize that Columbia County is just booming with interest for these programs. And we're going to try to figure out a way for communities to apply for this program one by one and pick maybe the 2 best in the whole region. But we decided at the county level, it makes a lot of sense, because if a county does a climate resiliency plan, municipalities can really jump on board and you're not kind of duplicating efforts. So we brought this to David yesterday as an idea. We'd love to have Columbia County be kind of our pilot program, but also just, kind of we think that the interest and just general, the fact that CCE Green Columbia is based there, that's going to help this process a lot, because they're going to be the technical consultants for this process, as well as any of the municipalities that want to join. And we're hoping to get at least 7 individual municipalities in the county, in addition to the county itself, which I don't think will be an issue. There's so many of you out there that are interested in this type of work. So that's the gist of what we're looking for, and more just about climate adaptation planning. If you're not familiar, this is the idea of a vulnerability assessment. So figuring out, where the vulnerabilities lie with climate change. Of course, there's the other side, there's mitigation, so reducing emissions. This is strictly where there's gaps, flooding, what's going to happen, projections, so scenario planning. So thinking about, like, if the flood, if we reach this level of, sea level rise, what's the impact going to be to the county? How do we plan for this? So think about it as a comprehensive plan for climate change specifically. And I mean, obviously the benefits of that are future grant opportunities could be much more accessible to any municipality that participates, including the county. Just a general plan for the future as far as infrastructure goes. And again, this is free support, whereas these plans, I think, initially we were thinking about $10,000 or $11,000 per plan. We're going to be doing 8 plans, ideally for the county, maybe more. So think about like that level of free services that the county's getting through the DEC for this program. That's just a general estimate. It's hard because we're kind of doing an economy of scale with this process by doing it all together. But the idea of what a comp plan would cost probably is what you'll be looking at. And then as far as what we're expecting, it's going to be driven by Cornell Cooperative Extension of Columbia Green. So they're going to be the technical consultant. They're going to be bringing you through the process, including having public outreach, doing some meetings, appropriate parties that need to be involved in this, which there's, it's going to be a wide range. Each community that wants to participate will also need to have some input and be a part of these meetings. I mean, I think that's the gist of it. I don't know if I'm missing anything, David, but I'm sure that there's questions, but that's what we're looking for. Oh, and just that, the timeline as far as getting moving with this, we are hoping to get moving soon. We have a 2-year contract with the DEC to do this. And I know that's a lot to ask, but we're hoping to get this moving in like the next month or so. With, the idea that I know resolutions take a while to adopt, but we're hoping to at least get, we're hoping this is going to move forward. We're okay. We can introduce Cornell Cooperative Extension to you, who it's not an introduction. You already know those folks, but just to start some of the meetings and the initial kickoff and things like that. But yeah, so that is the gist of what we're hoping to do. And we have a resolution template that I think you all saw, and we'd be asking the county as well as any town that wants to participate to adopt that resolution to engage in climate action planning. Because as we know, it's a free service, but we also want to make sure that there's buy-in before we, get started. So it looks like Brenda has a question.
I do. I wondered if we've spoken to Cornell and if the staff required for the technical support is on board or would have to be identified and hired.
They are already under subcontract to us at CDRPC to do this work. We've spoken with Connor there, if anyone knows Connor. He's totally excited about the county being potentially a first applicant. So he's aware, but we wanted to approach you guys just because the contract would actually be with us to do this work. Well, you're not signing a contract, but the money, and the support services are coming from us.
So the capacity, Cornell has the capacity to be the technical consultant. You've already vetted that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And as has the DEC.
Okay.
Matthew?
Hi, Tara. As you probably know, Germantown is doing their culverts and dams assessment. Would this be something different? Would this be in addition to that?
It would be in addition to that, and that would be just a piece of what we'd identify in the plan itself is things that have already been completed. And I know there's a lot of culvert and dam projects that are happening throughout the county. So it's with any plan, it's a matter of how far we've come, what we still need to do. And that kind of goes into the vulnerability assessment piece too.
All right, great. So this is something we can do in addition to that work that we're already doing.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Did somebody else see all the hands raised for some reason? I see Susan.
Yeah, that's me. I just want to mention that Cornell Cooperative Extension did a planning resiliency tool for us, which sounds pretty much like what you're talking about, but I'm not positive. Anyway, it's completed. And so if that's useful to, I don't know, showing the buy-in you need or having some evidence that the county is interested in this, I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Susan. I think they were doing some initial just climate resiliency assessments. So just some basic level checkbox type forms that they were going through with municipalities to help them understand and where to start with this. So I think that's what you're talking about. This is going to be a much larger plan. If you look at some of the other examples from, I think what David had sent in the email, sometimes Orange County has one of these. Theirs is 120 something page plan. So I'm not sure what the final page count's going to be, but just so you get an idea of what this is going to look like, it'll be pretty comprehensive and in depth with maps and all kinds of data. So. Somebody, Mark, do you have your hand up?
Mark. Yeah, John, go ahead.
Yeah, Tara, will a summary of this program be issued and also a copy of the resolution? So we have information to take to our towns?
Yeah,
Yes.
I sent that earlier today, John. So
Oh.
check your email. It's sent as a follow-up on the email with the agenda I sent earlier this week. So it's in the same thread. And I apologize for getting it out so soon before the meeting. This again came to our attention very recently yesterday, and so wanted to make sure we had an opportunity to talk about it today. Mark.
Great.
All right, a couple things I want to mention. New Lebanon is also doing that climate smart resilience planning tool with Cornell Cooperative Extension this year, which is sort of a baseline. The other thing I wanted to ask Tara, it sounds like this project would actually satisfy multiple climate smart projects at the same time. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the intention, Mark. That's a very good point that I forgot to mention, is that the county will get points for this because this is being headed up by the DEC. They obviously want it to align with the Climate Smart program and any points that can be achieved for that program. So the qualifications and requirements of this plan are all going to fit into getting each community that participates points for that climate resiliency plan, or climate adaptation plan, I think is what they call it, under PE 7.
Right. Okay, great. And then the other thing I just wanted to put on everyone's radar is I believe the county is updating their hazard mitigation plan this year. So the effort that Tara is proposing, I think, would run in parallel or maybe mesh well with that effort as well. Like maybe we can cross-inform those two efforts and potentially save some effort by doing this together.
That's a great point, Mark, too. And we've talked to Cornell about that, and they were aware of that as well. So yes, the idea would be to kind of align resources to not duplicate, because that HMP is really going to provide a lot of data for this piece too.
Okay.
Brenda. Oh, you're muted.
I had two questions, one for David and one for Patrice. So is it my understanding that you'd like a recommendation from the task force for the county to participate? And if that's the case, Patrice, has the submission of materials date for county government passed, or could we get it on this month's agenda?
The deadline is tomorrow at noontime, so it'd be a little bit tricky. I haven't reviewed any of this. I didn't even open that email that David's referring to, so I haven't even had a chance to look at what's being proposed. But I can say that the county does provide Cornell with a significant amount of funding, and so I have a couple of questions really along those lines, because we do provide them funding to support various efforts, and then they would be receiving additional funding to prepare this or work on this plan on behalf of for the Climate Smart. So I'm just wondering how our funding and that funding would kind of mesh on this, and what role that how they would work with the county, especially in light of the hazard mitigation plan that's already underway. And the other point I'd like to make is that the county doesn't really have any authority to plan for how municipalities handle town infrastructure or town. The county plan would only be able to address really county assets. So I guess that's a consideration also, if only a specific number of towns would be involved with the county effort also, how that would work for those towns that weren't able to be involved. So I'm just kind of curious about those things. And just, I haven't reviewed any of the information. So I'm just, they're with the questions that I have.
David, I can take that as far as what
Please.
Cornell's resources. So you'll have to talk with Connor more closely about this, and we can introduce, you might know Connor already from Cornell Cooperative Extension, but if you don't, we can introduce you. But this shouldn't overlap with their funding that the county is providing them. This is going to be, the funding that we're providing through the DEC to do this work is strictly, for these plans. So they should have enough there. I don't know about match and things like that and how they may be providing some of those resources. So that'll be a question for him as far as budget goes. But I know that they don't have the resources probably to do a plan of this depth without the DEC's funding for this too. So that's something to note as well. And then as far as the other communities that may not participate in this plan, they will still, get some planning services through this, because obviously the county's plan is going to include all, physical parts of the county. It's just a matter of whether or not they are able to get credit through the Climate Smart Communities program, which the Climate Smart program requires them to kind of be involved in this process as well. So they may not have any interest in that. They may not be interested in getting points or credit, but they'll still get some free planning services just because, the county includes every town.
I think maybe an example, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is, while the county may not own a particular asset in a town that's not participating, the hazard or the potential impact for which resilience planning or some action would be necessary will be identified, will be, there's a floodplain, there's some other issue that in the future we expect will be an issue for that town. It ideally would be identified in the plan as a potential threat, so the town can use that as a guide for its future planning, even if it doesn't participate directly. Would that be a fair way of looking at it, Tara?
Yeah, that's correct. Exactly.
And I think also, there are many towns that have climate smart task force, but they're all at different points of their evolution or the work that they're doing. So this would be a tool that different task force or towns can use or not use as they choose, but they'll have the data and the information available because of a county plan. And it may educate them to some shortcomings or liabilities in their community that they were unaware of.
Yeah, and we are I'm consistently being asked by folks throughout the county who are involved in these various town and village committees what this task force and what the county can do to support those local efforts. And the community solar is a good example of that, and there'll be other example of that as well. There's obviously a range of resources available and levels of enthusiasm in the various towns, and I think it's a great role for us to play, to be able to extend out and provide optional support to towns that want it. In these, it saves dollars, not reinventing the wheel in every particular town, but doing something more holistically.
And Tara, can I just ask, what is the deadline? When do towns have to let you know that they want to take part?
Yeah, we haven't defined that yet. I think we just wanted to ensure that the county was on board before we started reaching out. But I think after we've either verbally confirmed the county's on board, obviously the process of resolution will take a little bit longer. We'll set a deadline for what that is for towns.
So Tara, if we couldn't get this before home committee in July, but we could in August, would that be a setback?
I don't think so. I think that would still be fine as long as we, it's hard to judge, what the interest is. But if we were feeling there was strong interest and that this would adopt, we'd be comfortable with moving forward regardless. So getting at least the kickoff meeting started and things like that.
So I was late to this conversation and I do apologize, but our county government meeting's on the 20th. Brenda, is there a reason it couldn't get in front of county government on July 20th?
Well, usually the submission date for materials is 10 or 12 days out. That's the reason I asked Patrice for clarification. And she said the submission, but also I think Patrice's point was, and she's on the call, so she can speak to this. She just got the materials this morning, so she's not familiar with them. So she's asking for time to be familiar with the materials and then time to get them through the system. Is that correct, Patrice?
I've actually thought the county government meeting was the 13th. So,
no, the full board is on the 13th. County government is the 20th.
Okay, so then so the deadline would not be this Friday, but yes, I have not even opened that email, so I haven't reviewed anything. That's correct. But the deadline, apologize. I thought the meeting was a different date.
So the deadline would be Friday the 15th, which could potentially be time to get it in for July if you reviewed it and thought it was worthy of putting forward.
I have a suggestion. This is all last minute. I apologize. It's the soonest we could get the information. We wanted to take advantage of this time to talk about it, and we can continue doing that. Given that folks haven't really looked at it, and this is the first they're hearing about it, and given the fact that it sounds like we have more time, Patrice, to get it in front of the government committee, perhaps we give people a few days to look at it and then vote by email on a resolution that we can talk about now, and a recommendation. That's our resolutions or recommendations, right? To recommend to move it to the government committee for consideration. Would that allow people time to be comfortable to review? It's not a lot of material, what I sent, or to follow up with Tara or with me with additional questions before we actually vote on a resolution?
I think that's a good idea because that would also allow Jolene and the other members of the committee who are not here today or task force to take a look at this. So I like that idea. But before we move to the discussion of the resolution, I would just really like to thank Tara for thinking of us. I think this is an extraordinary opportunity, and I hope we can avail ourselves of it. But I appreciate your confidence in the work that we're doing and your support for the work that we're doing.
Of course. Yeah. The county is wonderful and you guys have done so much in the last few years. And I think the interest in the town, the individual towns is really a reason that we brought this, because obviously we want the county to do the plan, but we want towns to jump on too. And we're pretty confident we can get at least 7 to really make this worth the effort, just because of the interest and the committee structures that you've formed in the town. So thanks, Brenda.
And another kind of contextual point is that we're kind of almost at an inflection point in our work as a task force. We've submitted for bronze. We are about to have this big climate carnival that's taken a bunch of effort to organize. We're well into our community solar campaign, and benchmarking is almost submitted and finalized. And so as we kind of wrap up this round of work, we naturally will have opportunities to take on more work. And this opportunity is kind of falling in our lap. And it's very relevant, as Mark said, relevant to ongoing planning processes that are already happening in the county. It's free. I do believe the task force will have to, which is why we're here, to help organize, reach out to every town, make sure that any other town that wants to participate is aware and has the opportunity, to help with the stakeholder outreach meetings, to make sure that we reach out to fully to stakeholders in the county, and really we can enrich the process without having to do all the work, and then we can review it. So that's our role, in my opinion, and I think we can do a really good job here with not a big burden, not much of a burden at all on county resources, and hopefully we can then move forward on this. Another point is that if we can delineate the risks and we can look at the resources that are at risk and the physical infrastructure of the county in this kind of coherent, comprehensive way, it allows us to really prioritize our focus on infrastructure improvements and resilience kind of implementation, which and I've been told that with a plan like this, we would qualify more easily for funding necessary to help fulfill those projects. So I think on a lot of levels it makes sense, and I want to just see if there are other comments or concerns or questions. Figure out a time by which we'll vote by email, and I'll send that follow-up to the whole task force, this information for folks that aren't on the call, to say, please review this information. We've discussed that the general sense is we'd like to seriously consider this, and we will vote on whether to recommend moving this to the government committee by a certain time. So
yeah, so I don't know about this committee, but typically you're not allowed to vote by email. So if this committee is doing a vote, we could either take a vote today pending review or approval, or we could hold a 5-minute special meeting. So if the deadline for Patrice to get it on the agenda is the 15th, we could have a quick 5-minute meeting, say on the 13th. Because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Brenda or others, but in government, you're not allowed to vote via email. Patrice. Yeah. So I would suggest, because I think this is an important enough opportunity, I would suggest that we, give everyone 5 days to review it, and either Thursday, I would say probably Wednesday the 13th, because we also want to give Patrice time to, prep the resolution and make sure it's in our format. I'd imagine part of what Tara sent over is a sample resolution, or are we having to, yeah. So it gives Patrice and the county attorney time to do their review of the resolution before sending it on Friday. Patrice, if we had a vote from this committee on Wednesday to move it forward, would Thursday and Friday be sufficient on your end to then get that resolution onto the agenda?
I can't speak for the county attorney's office. I don't know what their schedule is, but it might be tight, but I'll do my best to expedite it. It's better if we don't expedite these resolutions all the time. It seems like every resolution that we're bringing to county government. We're behind the 8 ball and trying to expedite them, and it's a little challenging for everyone involved. So I just hope going forward we could try and like not continue that trend that we have established here to putting things on the agenda last minute and then having to decide without enough information and then trying to process them in order to meet the county's schedule. So that I will do my best to do this, and I will talk to the county attorney to see if they'll be able to turn it around. I can't answer definitively right now though about that.
Okay. And I do hear you. And I also, Brenda, I'm sure you've experienced this. I have had resolutions brought to committee before that have not had time to have attorney review. And we as a committee, before it gets to full board, obviously the attorney reviews it, but we as a committee have voted on resolutions with the wording that it is pending attorney review. And again, I don't want this to become the MO or the normal operating procedure. But I have quite a few times had resolutions brought to me in a home committee where we haven't had a chance yet to have the attorney's review completed, and we've voted pending that, and then it moves to the full board after. And sometimes the attorney makes minor adjustments between the home committee voting it through and it getting to full board.
Yeah, I had a question. I know, John, you have your hand up, but I had a question about, and this is a question that we'll have to probably reflect on, but as an advisory committee, I'm wondering if we're under the same requirements as a typical committee, a formal committee of the county. My impression is we're not. I don't know that's true. I believe we're not. For example, it's a wonderful benefit that Maureen provides the minutes, and we do have to approve the minutes, but we don't actually have to approve the minutes as a matter of rule. So it's a question, really. It's not to say that we should operate this way, Patrice. Totally hear you, and we will do our best to improve in the timing. And there's been a few examples, so I get your frustration, and we'll try to do better to make your job easier. I'm sorry about that. But this did just come up last minute, so we're just trying to see what we can do.
And I think you're right, David. I think the attorney did opine that we are not subject to open meeting law, although we as a committee and as a board wanted all the meetings to be open and agendas published and all of that.
And we have been, and they're on the EMC site, which is great. And thank you, Maureen, and everyone else that helps make that possible. It's really important. I wonder if that means we could vote by email, just to make it easier for people. And maybe we can get some clarification on that. If anyone knows that answer definitively, that would be helpful. Brenda, you had your hand up.
Well, I was just going to say that I think that to vote by email is going to introduce another element that we don't want to introduce. It would be much easier just to have a special meeting. We don't want to have to justify what we did or why we did it, and have the main issue be diluted or complicated by the fact that we've done something that may or may not be part of an accepted process. I think it'd be much easier to have a 5-minute meeting next week. And I also Patrice, I appreciate what you're saying, but I think that this is a new opportunity. It's not something that is, a program that's been in the books for 2 years and we just found it and we're asking for a quick decision. It's something that's new and come forward, and is timely. So I think that we can justify the request based on the fact that it's new. It has a short lifespan of 2 years, and people need to get moving. So I think there's a good rationale for doing it quickly.
So, John.
It seems to me that the import of this program and the apparent widespread interest just on the limited amount of information we've had, that it would make sense, in my opinion, to have some kind of resolution by this body right now expressing a strong interest in this and approval for the principles, just to have it on the record, and it would be supportive of the other actions that we need to take and sort of help justify why we're trying to sort of move along a little bit quicker than usual. And I have all due respect for the orderliness of normal procedure.
Yeah, and I am sympathetic to that, John. I would vote in favor of it right now, but I also want to respect the order, because after all, Patrice and others that are working in government have to shoulder this work throughout to get it approved. And I think it's only fair to give it a few days to let everyone reflect. I expect we'll have a unanimous vote. I expect we'll have a lot of support, but I think it's just fair to give it a few days, and I don't think it's a big burden. I would like to figure out what an appropriate time is. I believe it will be something like a 10-minute meeting. And we could do so hopefully next week. Wednesday would be the latest day that you would want to see that, Patrice?
Yes, Wednesday would be the latest.
So Tuesday or Wednesday, I mean, I think as early as Monday, we should be able to do that. Can we, I don't know how to do this on the fly in terms of figuring out what the best time is for everyone next week, but Brenda, why don't you ask your question or comment while I'm trying to figure that out?
I was just going to say to John, the other thing is I think we need to acknowledge the importance of our staff. And I, would want Wendy and Jolene as well as Patrice to have time to read and be comfortable with this. If I were a staff person, I would feel really left behind if something was voted on. Opportunity to read it.
Yeah.
Well, just to clarify, my proposal is not to make the final decision, but just to be on the record of the sense of those present is that this is very important and we want to look carefully at it. Anyways, it doesn't matter. That's fine, whatever. I just also figured that getting a quorum at the last minute for 10 minutes on a day where, people have not scheduled, may already be scheduled, that might be more difficult. But I think it's fine. I'm not opposed to following the strict order of the procedures. I love procedures.
So we do Tuesday at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock is our normal meeting time, right?
10 o'clock is our normal meeting time. Not on a Tuesday, but yes, 10 o'clock is the normal time.
So how about raise your hand if you cannot do Tuesday at 10 o'clock? John?
This is Matt Stinchcomb. I cannot, but I would vote in favor of this if that's helpful.
What about Tuesday at noon? Does that change it for John and Matt?
I'm actually going to be camping next week, so I'll be out completely offline, unfortunately.
Good for you.
John, Tuesday at noon works for you?
Yeah, and I don't want to change schedules just for me. We could also have, if you have a quorum, we can have just sort of a side list of.
So other than Matt Stinchcomb, who cannot make any meeting next week, raise your hand if Tuesday at noon does not work for you.
It doesn't work for me. I'm going to be away, but if we had it early, it'll be before my day starts because I'll be on the West Coast. So, but so 10 o'clock would work better for me. It'll be 8 o'clock, and I could probably dial in.
Well, what about, so Wednesday we have our carnival meeting at 10. So there's a pretty big crew of us that will be meeting anyway.
Yeah.
What if we did
Combine them? Yeah.
9:45 on Wednesday and then went into our carnival meeting? Raise your hand if 9:45 Wednesday does not work for you.
I don't know.
Oh.
Okay. So we what is the sense of the group here? 10 on Tuesday, because Bruce might be able to make that and Brenda can make that. I think and John, if it's possible for you to make it, that would be great. If not, we understand. So I will send an invite for 10 a.m.
What about 9:45 on Wednesday? I mean, it's the same. I think we have the same thing. That would actually work better. That would be a single poll.
Brenda's not sure, and then that
okay.
gives Patrice an extra day.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
All right, I'll make a motion to schedule a special hearing for Tuesday, July 12th at 10 a.m.
Okay. I'm not sure we need a motion, but we will we will schedule the meeting at 10 a.m. on Tuesday.
Okay.
So
And
I will follow with an invitation and work with Maureen to get the Google Meet info so we can get that on the calendar, and hopefully everyone can participate. But I'll send that information out to the whole task force.
And David, also to get it out to the public.
And to get it out to the public, right? I don't know how that works because I haven't been involved in transmitting that information out, and I don't know whether there's enough time to do that, but
Yeah, I think Maureen, you're the one that puts it up on the website, right? The meeting links and stuff.
Yes, in the paper. That's what you're referring to. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Maureen,
I
what?
think there will be enough time.
Okay.
It's usually 2 days, and today's Thursday, so.
Unfortunately, I won't be on vacation next week, but I'm sure Patrice will make arrangements and follow up on that. I'll do what I can before that time.
Thank you so much, Maureen. And we can make arrangements for someone else to take the minutes for that special meeting. I think it'll be short and likely end in a resolution. Okay, any other thoughts on this right now? Thank you everyone for being flexible. We really appreciate that. This is a great opportunity, and I think we'll find that as we move forward, hopefully, taking advantage of it. And the flexibility is really kind of crucial because that's the timing. So moving forward, one question for you, Tistria, if you're still on. Back to the Climate Carnival, before you joined, there was a question about volunteers. Do we still need volunteers?
We do, yeah. So I'm hoping that everyone on this call can go to the Climate Carnival website, and on the left-hand bar, there's, what's happening, and then there's a thing that says volunteer. And if you can share it with others in your community, if you're a town supervisor, if you can send it out via your email blast. And the majority of the volunteers that we still need is on Friday, setting up the free store. And then I actually just remembered that I do need to break down the free store, and I had not originally put that on the volunteer spreadsheet. So I just emailed Caitlin asking her to add that. For the day of the carnival, we need a few more parking volunteers. We had wanted 3 for each shift. Right now we have 3 for the first shift and only 2 for the other 2. So please go on, check your availability, share with all of your networks. And it's been really great. We've collected a lot of free store stuff. Thank you to everyone that's coordinating free store pickup and drop off locations. And it's going to be a really great event. And we do still need volunteers. So please go to that website and go to the volunteer link and share that link with everyone you know.
Great. Thank you, Tistria. So just wanted to touch base on the last agenda item, and then if there's any other business, please let us know in the chat, and we'll give some time at the end. But there are some members of the task force who thank you all, first of all, for your continued participation. Let me just take the moment to say that we all are busy, and this is additional work, and it's important work, and I know everyone recognizes that, and they make it a priority, and I know everyone here appreciates it, and I know there are a lot of other people in the county, especially some of these smaller task forces in these various towns, that also appreciate the leadership that's starting to emerge here from the county, and it's appreciated. There are some members of the task force, for whatever reason, who have not been able to participate regularly. And I would like to reach out, and I plan to reach out to communicate with those folks and see if they're interested in continuing to serve. And if not, then having them step off. And I would like to open up a process for inviting new members and recommending to the Board of Supervisors to bring new members on. There's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of great people out there that I constantly bump into and that you all know and are working with. And I think there's a good opportunity for us to potentially fill some of those positions with new energy and more involvement. So I just wanted to raise that. not for any particular resolution, but just as a point. And I think the timeline that I'd like to see for this process is over the next 6 months, by the end of the year, kind of reconstituting the task force with whatever changes might be necessary. And if you all have suggestions for people that we would like to nominate to join the task force, then I'll be, reaching out and looking for those suggestions. I don't particularly have a list in mind at this point, but I know that we together can come up with a really strong roster of new members. Tistria?
Yeah, I fully support that. And I like the idea of having a process, reaching out to the members who are consistently not able to make it. Maybe it's a scheduling thing, maybe it's something else, and basically encouraging them. We'd like you to still be involved, but that involves being involved. And maybe instead of removing members, the conversation could just be that if they really don't have the time, maybe they could resign on their own. And kind of encouraging and finding out why they're missing meetings. Again, maybe it's a timing thing. Maybe they're having a family emergency that's not going to be the case in a couple months. And really for those that just, sorry, I thought I could do it, I don't have the time, just encouraging a letter of resignation. And then we as a board don't have to take action, or as a committee don't have to take action to remove members, but really just having that natural conversation of like, hey, we're doing a lot of great work, we're really missing you at the meetings, checking in. And then I think that's the most natural way to do it, that involves, conversation and figuring out what's going on with them.
That's right. I agree totally. So I will, I'll start some of those conversations and see where they lead, and make sure that people feel that if there are opportunities for us to involve people more by changing schedule or what have you, we'll consider those things. The other point is committees. We've had kind of ad hoc committees that have come and gone on the community solar, and the benchmarking and some other projects, the carnival for sure. Some of those are ephemeral and we don't need to have a continual carnival committee. We can reconstitute it every year. Hopefully we do this in the future. Some of them are temporary because of the nature of the campaign, and that's fine, and we can continue doing that. I wanted to open up if folks had suggestions or felt strongly that I'm not suggesting we need to have any kind of complicated committee structure, but if folks feel like that would help our work, I wanted to open up that conversation. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it can be more process than is worth it. So it might be that what we're doing is fine, which is responding to opportunities by constituting groups that will take on those things. But if folks had any thoughts on that, and whether we should be doing something more formal in terms of having any kind of committee that would be continually working on various aspects of the work, I wanted to open up that conversation.
I think I like the idea of having committees that are a function of the work that we're doing at a given time. And as we're going to be looking at for lack of a better word, a new work plan, once we get the bronze certification, I'm assuming that our next work plan will be how to get from bronze to silver. So as we define that work, we could probably look at the committee structure and see if we have the work groups in place to realize the goals of that work plan. I do think there is some value, institutional wise, of having one or two more permanent committees that basically oversee the progress of our work. But I leave that to the.
Yeah. Matthew.
I would second what Brenda said. I know that subcommittees here in Germantown have worked very efficiently because it gives everybody a mental space, gives them a job to focus on rather than the group as a whole, which is always harder to wrangle. So I know that our solar committee did a fairly good job. We had a nice focus and we were able to get the job done. So I don't necessarily want to do something more informal. But again, I'll like to hear what the group has to say. I mean, if we do a heating and cooling demo, I think that would help to have a committed group of folks to look into that together, rather than the whole task force. It might just, spread us too thin. If we have folks that are informally or formally, I don't know how people feel, but I like having a committee. I don't mind having another meeting, in other words. So I don't mind it.
Yeah.
But I'm open to what other people have to say.
I think, Brenda, you make a great point. As the new work plan emerges, our needs will evolve, and we'll identify which committees we need to develop, and whether we need a continuous kind of executive committee or some sort of committee that helps to kind of oversee and structure the work between meetings. I know that would be helpful, but we can work on that with Wendy as we, in the coming weeks and months as we develop this new work plan. And Matthew, great. I see it obviously emerging, this focus on energy efficient heating and cooling, and possibly a campaign. And so I do think we will, if we move in that direction, which seems logical, we'll need a committee to take that work on, similar to the community solar work that I think, I agree, we did a pretty good job on that. So any other thoughts on this for now? We're not trying to come up with some definitive path forward. Just want to kind of seed this thought in people's minds so that when we revisit it as part of the work plan process, we have had a chance to reflect on it. I wanted to reserve a few minutes to talk about a work planning process for the next, for a 12-month work plan process. I think it'll take us a little time to work through that, but I do think by next meeting, we should have a list of priorities that we would like to pursue, and then we should vote on which priorities we want to pursue in what order, so we can start that work. As I said, we'll have more bandwidth heading out of the summer into the fall, given the nature of the work that we've taken on so far. So it would be great if people could provide their thoughts right now on what some of those priorities would look like. I'll just start by putting out those ideas that have already emerged. The idea of a heat pump campaign, similar to the community solar campaign, is I think a logical candidate, and having more information available on opportunities for energy efficiency and efficient heating and cooling systems for community members is perhaps a part of that campaign, but also something that can start sooner, like this outreach to community solar. So I think that's part of it. And hold on, I have a little list here. The adaptation and resilience planning, obviously, that we'll talk more about that. And I'll open it up to any other suggestions. I have a couple more that I would throw out there, but folks have any thoughts?
I'm wondering about education. As fossil fuel prices continue to rise, and people are very concerned about how to heat and cool their homes. Is anybody seeing any pushback against green energy initiatives, and do we need to be putting that in some sort of perspective? That's a question, not a statement.
So are you thinking about something beyond, if we were to run like a heat pump energy efficiency campaign, where we'd be promoting solutions and providers and trying to get people to actually sign up to do things on their own? There'd be an educational component to that. But it sounds like you're thinking about something perhaps beyond that.
I don't know. I'm just wondering if people are getting any pushback in their communities about green or energy efficiency. Thinking that maybe I mean, I just heard a conversation at the post office the other day about the fact that fossil fuel companies were not willing to invest in additional production in the United States unless they could get a 10-year commitment from the government that they could, so that they could get their return on the investment. And for that reason, these two gentlemen who were having this fairly heated conversation felt that, you know, maybe solar and wind and other green initiatives should take a back seat because people need to be able to heat their homes this year. And that people can't pay $6.79 a gallon for fuel oil this year. So, you know, where's the balance? That's the conversation they were having, is where's the balance?
Right. I've certainly heard that narrative and read it. Matthew?
So we've had these discussions in Germantown with our community and with our town board, certainly. And we have found that actually education is key to getting buy-in. The town switched over to solar, community solar. Even though it didn't count towards the campaign, the municipal buildings don't count towards the, but once we explained how it worked and that it wasn't something too complicated, it worked remarkably well. The same with the culverts and dams. The highway department is on board. They're a stakeholder once they saw the benefit that Cornell was going to do the work. So education has to come first before you can even get to the stage of getting them to buy in. But I agree that some of these companies, like the solar companies, I mean, the argument that they have to be more invested in the communities, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion and not something we can tackle. But the heating and cooling thing that we're going to do is also going to have a huge educational component, and you get CSC points for it too. If you make signage, if you show the community how exactly it works, it's always a benefit. So, but I know every community is different. So I don't know what the discussions people are having in their own communities are. We've had some fairly good luck here in Germantown. Stretch code was a bit controversial. I won't get into that, but other than that, the board is willing to listen, and therefore the town is willing to listen. So education is always the first step. So yeah, whatever we do has to be accompanied by outreach and education and letting people know that it's a choice. Like community solar was very successful because we weren't forcing it on people. So stretch code was a bit more complicated because you're affecting the building code and telling folks this is how, you know, so it is a fine line.
Mm-hmm. Tara?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, you know, the education piece is critical, definitely. But something that worked that I saw recently was the North Chatham Library had a heat pump home tour that they ran. And obviously this wasn't possible maybe 2 years ago because of COVID. People don't want to open up their homes, but it was wonderful. I mean, the library put it together, and I initially had presented to the library on heat pump technology and through the Heat Smart campaign, but then they kind of took it and ran with it because there was so much interest in the town. And yeah, there was probably like 4 or 5 people in the North Chatham area that had heat pumps, different types of heat pumps, and they opened up their homes. They talked about how wonderful they were, how the installation process went, what their monthly bills are. To people that came out and just saw, you know, in person that this can work and that it's not crazy, and you know the upfront cost of what this house paid for it. So I just thought that was a great idea. Obviously something that might be hard to organize at a county level, but maybe within a town to do kind of these home tours.
It's a great idea. Patrice?
There's some impacts now that we're wrangling with the Farmland Protection Board and the Planning Board, and it's the visual impacts of solar and screening, particularly the areas in the county where they're being constructed. And also the larger concern is the loss of prime agricultural resources because of solar. And I participate on the state task force for farmland protection, evaluating the Climate Act, and it's a real issue that is being looked at for all the counties throughout the state as far as the loss of prime farmland through the development of the large solar projects. and the long-term impacts of that. So I think in the education that sort of needs to be addressed also, if we're going to look at some sort of program with that to incorporate ag and markets recommendations for solar development and the loss of farmland and impacts to ag resources going forward.
Yeah, it's certainly a controversial issue that we've seen at Hecate and continue to see in different places, and needs to be discussed and addressed. And hopefully, as Hecate, I don't know if anyone has been. It'd be interesting. Maybe at the next meeting we can get a quick update on what's happening there. The latest. I know that there's been a lot of negotiations, changes in the scope and mitigation efforts to protect resources. And I think there, in that messy business of the details, lies the answer in large part of how to balance these competing demands and go through a process. That may not be a good example of how to go through the process, but in terms of balancing these competing concerns and addressing them, that's a key. And then educating people on what's happening. But it's a great point, Patrice. Thanks. Okay.
So maybe there are a couple of things that we could look at in terms of education too. I mean, there might be just a simple FAQ about, things like how many days above 90 degrees did we have in 1970, 1980, 2000, 2020, and now what are we expecting in 2030 or 50? I mean, I think people need to understand how the context is changing and why these initiatives are important in those contexts. And that the nice thing about local or community actions is that everything is like a drop of water. We eventually, it's cumulative, and we begin to see impact as as that interest and commitment grows. But I do think that my son was quite annoyed by that conversation because he said, "You're not the one that's going to be living in a desert. I'm the one that's going to be living. Your beautiful vision of Columbia County is, a green and verdant valley." But he said, if we don't do anything, I'm going to be living in a desert, and that's not fair to me and my children. So I think we need to talk about without being fear mongers. I think we need to talk about how, climate is changing and how these actions that we're taking are having an impact on that change, if we can.
I think that's a really important point, and we can do so in a very objective way, making that case and then bringing it home locally, getting testimony from different people in the county as to what they've seen and what their concerns are, and just looking at the data and the information, like you're pointing out. That would be a service to put that out there. The NRI does that to some limited extent, the natural resource inventory. And I use that. I refer to that because it is a county document. And it's sobering to think about the potential rise, the fluctuations in weather we've seen. We're expecting to see what happens, when we have that many days above 90 degrees, and it's hasn't rained for several weeks right now. I mean, it's very local, but where we are in Ghent, we haven't had a lot of rain in the last few weeks. That happens. But what happens in the future when that happens to farms and to our streams and our resources? So I think that's a great role for us to play, and an important one that is on the one hand obvious, and on the other hand we don't do it. We don't actually take that on. So that could be a really great opportunity. We also have the benefit of a lot of artists and filmmakers and creative people in this county who I'm sure we could bring into helping to get that message out. It's one thing to put an FAQ on the website. Very few people will see it. That's important. It's there. We've done the work, so we might as well put it on the website. But it would be great to have something more powerful, and that could become that could provide people with some of the content they need to get these messages out there. That's great. I wanted to ask about the EV charging, fast charging grants that are available now. And I don't know if Supervisor Knott is on the call, but we had talked at the last meeting, and we had resolved as a group to recommend that the county move forward with pursuing that grant program to essentially pay the full cost along with utility rebates of at least one fast charging station in the county. Right now, we have the fast charging Tesla station, and that's it as far as I know. So I was curious if anyone had any. I don't know if Supervisor Knott's on the call. If anyone has an update there on what's happened, I believe. Supervisor Knott said he would explore the opportunity with the Board of Supervisors, suggested the county airport potentially, and the county needs to. It was clear that there needs to be a benefit to the public, not a burden to taxpayers. And Bill Rohr can map out the timeline for the decision making. That's in our minutes from the last meeting. So I don't know if we have an update. Oh, Tara.
I don't have an update on what's going on with that, but I just wanted to mention about the ZEV rebate that the county is eligible based on the median household income of the county for a 10% match instead of the typical 20%. So anywhere that you place it, you'll only have to do 10% as a municipality or as a county. We just ran some numbers because we were trying to identify those communities that had 0% match. But because obviously the city of Hudson is considered a disadvantaged community, if you placed the station there and the county owned it, there would be no match. So that's just an update as far as the match requirement for what the county, and there are a number of towns that are eligible for either 10% or no match. Actually, I think the only one that's no match based on MHI was maybe Greenport. I'm trying to think of what it was, but there's a bunch that are 10%. So like Ankrum, Austerlitz, Laverick, Ghent, Livingston, New Lebanon, Stockport all have a 10% instead of the traditional 20. So just as a note, as we ran those numbers.
Okay, I will try to follow up with Wendy and with Supervisor Knott to see if there's been any progress there. But I do think as a matter of work planning, it would be a shame if we miss these opportunities for these grants at this point. So there is some great urgency to really to really move forward on this, and perhaps we revisit this robustly in our August meeting. Hopefully that's not too late, so we can bring that issue to a higher level of awareness at the board level. But I think in terms of long-term planning, there's a strong argument in favor of making EV infrastructure, EV fleets, a part of our plan. So I'll throw that out there. I'd like to resume this conversation. Obviously, if you have other thoughts on the work planning or the committees, please let me know. And I'd like to bring these back up at our July or August meeting. Focus in on what we want to prioritize and make some decisions as a group as to what we want to work on. Great. Well, that's all I have. Brenda.
Minutes.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
So we have May and June minutes, which I sent out. Do we have a motion to approve the May and June minutes? Bill, a second. John, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, Patrice has her hand up. Hold the vote.
No, it was my eye. I was just raising my hand.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you very much, Brenda. Okay, we have a bunch of follow-ups, and I'll be in touch. We're meeting 10 a.m. on Tuesday to discuss and vote on the resilience planning opportunity that Tara's brought, as always, for joining us and all the work you do. And thanks everyone for your participation. Appreciate it. Brenda, thank you for joining us on vacation.
David, can I do one more carnival plug?
Yes.
everyone get on the website. I put the volunteer link right in the chat box, or you can just go to the website, sign up to volunteer. Definitely put it on your calendar to attend. It's going to be a really great event. We've put in a lot of hard work and I'm really excited.
I signed up for Friday this year.
Thank you.
Great. And you can also go to climatecarnival.org, which redirects you to that site. So if someone's like, oh, where do I get more information? You can say climatecarnival.org. It's easy to remember, and they'll go to that location.
David, I did have one more question. I'm sorry, I'm just thinking of this. So the
Sure.
Chatham Library is collecting donations and the CLC was getting the donations and storing them. They have been so successful at getting donations that the CLC is full.
Yeah.
So in, climate times, for us to go and bring the donations to New Lebanon to store them, to then bring them back to the Chatham Fairgrounds seems completely backwards. Can someone please think of places in Chatham? It could be somebody's barn. It could be a spare bedroom in somebody's house. It could be a town hall. It could be a village hall. Can everyone please put out your feelers to everyone you know in Chatham? This is kind of a time sensitive thing. And we have volunteers that will get them from the library and bring them to said location, and volunteers that will get them from said location and bring them to the fairgrounds. We just need a place to store them in Chatham or surrounding areas.
Tister, I'm going to be in Chatham anyway, and I'll keep my car will be electric the whole way, so I won't use any gas.
I know, but so for those of us that are bringing the entire New Lebanon Free Store to Chatham and already have like 10 carloads, really don't want more car trips on Thursday to the Chatham Fairgrounds with the Chatham donations. So ideally we would find a more local location.
Okay.
Did you think about calling John Howe and asking him if he has a room?
I didn't. And I am going to also email Jolene because the fairgrounds are actually open. So somebody said, can't we just put them in the building where the free store is going to be?
Oh, that would be great.
So I'm also going to try that route. But in case that's not successful, I just wanted to put it out to this larger group.
Let me know by tomorrow, because tomorrow is when I was going to pick up. Yep.
Yep. I'm working on it today, Bruce. I'll have you an answer.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Tistria and Bruce and everyone else. The free store is going to be phenomenal, and the repair cafe and the bike swap and all the other great stuff. There's been so much work gone into this. Jolene, I don't think she's on, but she deserves a huge amount of credit as well, as does the whole group that's worked on this. And
Don Meltz, Don and Jolene
and
have really done
Don
the heavy
Don
lift.
Meltz has been instrumental in the planning department. Great help, and it's very inspiring. So looking forward to hanging out with everyone in a week and a half, and in the meantime, we'll talk on Tuesday. So have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave.